The itsy bitsy fighter doesn't get a song. Sup, Punions, Chris Punking here, and welcome to DnDesign, the show where I look at D&D class design and roast it, or praise it, based on my own biased opinions. Today, the fighter, a class that I really like and really don't like at the same time, because it is very confused. We'll get to that. Level 1, D10 hit die for frontline makes sense. Proficiency in all weapons, armor, and shields are also exactly what I was expecting. High hit point and armor class make fighters really strong. Strength and con save proficiencies are also fitting and good. Let's move on. Fighting style. Fighting styles are good. They are flavorful and decent in terms of power. I distinguish between two types of fighting styles. The passive ones, which give you a flat bonus like defense, which increases your AC by 1, or archery, which gives you a +2 bonus to attack rolls for ranged weapons. These go on your character sheet and affect the math, and then you never think about them again for the rest of the campaign. They're simple but boring, which makes me like and dislike them at the same time. The other type is the active fighting style, which require you to do something. Interception, for instance, lets you protect your allies as a reaction. And while these are more exciting to use, they are also worse, because especially once you get into the higher levels, these don't get better. At higher levels, fighters make more attacks, and for example, the archery fighting style will affect all of those attacks with a +2 bonus. Meanwhile, the monsters will also start making more attacks, and the interception fighting style will only be able to stop one of those, because it costs a reaction. I like it, but I also don't. Here is how I made fighting styles more interesting. Once per turn, I let fighters change their fighting style without requiring an action. This makes the fighter truly feel like he has mastered all the weapons, and also makes them more adaptable, without making them strictly stronger, because they're only trading one bonus for another. Kinda like a spellcaster who has the right spell for every situation. Also at level 1, Second Wind. The fighter heals himself as a bonus action once per rest. But don't get me wrong, I like to have the bonus action available to me, but why does the fighter get this? Like, it's not super strong, it really doesn't feel all that epic to use, and it doesn't really play into the fantasy of the fighter. Like, this can potentially bring you back from 1 HP all the way up to full at level 1. Fighters aren't known for their crazy healing factors. Wolverine is the exception, not the rule. I just don't get this. Why is this here? Level 2, Action Surge. This feature is bad. Until you reach level 5. Seriously, until you get that sweet extra attack, your fighter's Action Surge amounts to a single additional attack once per rest. Again, it doesn't feel super strong, it also doesn't feel all that epic to use, and once again, it doesn't really play into the fantasy of the fighter. Like, they do more stuff, they make more attacks. No, that's the monk, what the hell? But if you multi-class for this, you can cast 2 spells on the same turn. And if you reach level 5, then it actually begins feeling powerful and being insanely strong as well. Like, the damage of an action-surging fighter is nothing to sneeze at for sure. But for me, this is simply not enough. The fighter at levels 1 and 2 just does nothing. He has 2 features that can be used only once between rests, and a fighting style. And it's not like these are high complex abilities, or at least last for an entire fight like a barbarian's rage. You use them and then they're gone. Fighters are so unfun at this point. Not weak, mind you, their high AC and hit point values are good, and their damage, because they have all weapon proficiencies, makes them decently powerful. But once you have used your action surge, all you're left with is to punch. Once per turn. Riveting gameplay. But they are supposed to be simple and beginner-friendly. Simple does not have to mean boring. Barbarians are simple. You rage and then you hit. But the difference is that you feel the impact of your rage whenever you deal damage, and whenever someone deals damage to you. Level 3. Fighter gets the subclass. And just like the cleric, fighters live and die by their subclasses. The difference is that for the cleric, that is intentional. Like, you get so many subclass features that it becomes a major part of your character. For the fighter, the subclass is like your only saving grace for a class that would otherwise be sleep-inducing. Like, I sometimes imagine what it would be like to play a champion fighter and Rune Knight. Sorry, where was I? Yes. Luckily, the fighter has a ton of great subclasses. The Eldritch Knight gives you spells for some decision making and resource management. The Battlemaster's maneuvers are infamous for being the thing that all fighters should get as part of their base class, because then they would, guess what, would not be super boring. My personal favorite is the Rune Knight, but Psy Warrior and Arcane Archer sound fun too, and I hear nothing but praise for the Echo Knight. The rest, I guess the less said the better. Let's just say that I'm a fan of active features, aka features that require you to actively use them as opposed to just passively apply them. A +1 magic weapon is super boring because once you wrote down the bigger number on your character sheet, you will forget all about that sword. A sword that can be activated to deal 1d6 additional fire damage 3 times per day is much more interesting. It forces you to decide when to use it. You have to engage with it, make decisions, and track resources. That is cool. I like that. And don't start with complexity, because dealing 1d6 additional fire damage is not complex. When looking at the champion fighter, that subclass gets 0 active features. It's all passive. Nothing where you need to make a choice. Nothing where you need to track a resource. I hate it. I will never play this. Champion, more like champion playable. Level 5. Extra attack. Very strong. I do hate it, but you do want it. Tension time with Pumpkin. Why does every martial character get extra attack? All this leads to is that every martial character feels samey at that point. But Pumpkin, you said that the rogue sucks because it doesn't get extra attack. Yes, but the reason for that is that the rogue gets nothing to compensate for the lack of extra attack. But imagine, if you will, a world where every martial got a unique feature that was roughly as strong as extra attack at level 5, but different to distinguish them from one another. The barbarian's blows deal damage to multiple targets. The fighter's attacks inflict a battle maneuver always. The ranger's strikes always reveal an opening that their allies can exploit. The paladin's pounds always smite for massive damage. The monk gets to make a bunch of attacks because that's the monk's thing. Extra attack makes every martial character feel identical. And the same applies to spellcasters because spell slots work the same across all classes. Except for the warlock, which is why that class is awesome. Tangent. Level 6. More ability score increases. In 3.5 and Pathfinder as well, the fighter's main identity was that he got a bunch of feats. And that was pretty boring already, and now that feats are an optional rule, this is even worse. Unfortunately, feats are where a lot of the martial character's damage comes from, so this is not a weak feature, but the balance of feats is so poor that there's only like 5 good feats to pick from. And why exactly does the main class not carry its own weight? Why is every optimized character running around with Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master? Feats should be expanding a character's arsenal, not overshadowing everything else that they can do. Level 9, Indomitable. You get to re-roll a save once per long rest. Incredible. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just so boring and uninspired. Like, let them make an attack as they do it. You try to stop me. You might even succeed, but I will take you down with me, and if it's the last thing I do. Level 11, more attacks. Now Action Surge gets really funny. Remember how I complained that every class gets extra attack at level 5? Now suddenly they don't? The fighter is the only one who gets extra attack again at level 11. So now I must just wonder why. Did they realize that it would be boring if everyone got it? Why did the monk, the barbarian, and the ranger get nothing even remotely comparable to a third attack every turn in their arsenal? Again, I'm not complaining about the power here. I'm just wondering what they were thinking when comparing these classes during design. More Indomitable, Snore, more Action Surge, yay! Capstone, 4 attacks every turn, oh my god. They just stopped trying. I mean, it's good, and it gives the fighter a fair bit of identity in the game as the guy who just attack. But I think there could have been so much more here. The fighter is just confused. It tries to be simple and beginner-friendly, But instead of grabbing you and showing you how awesome this game can be, it just kind of bores you to death with the most basic features of all time, most of which aren't even all that thematic for the fighter identity. And it leaves it up to the subclasses to do something that's actually interesting with the class. I just realized that if I don't have an outro, maybe these videos never end. What if I've been streaming all this time without realizing it? Maybe we're all just streamers, stuck in a perpetual subathon and people are always watching, Truman Show style. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe this curse has been cast upon me the moment I created a YouTube channel and uploaded my first video. And now there is no going back.